Hello and welcome to Slice Print Roleplay. So tonight we're going to be talking about something a little different. The model that you see in front of you is a sea troll modeled by Dutchmogul, who, if you watch one of my last videos, he also modeled Sergeant Scalesby, which is a invaluable tool, in my opinion, for modeling, for scaling your models, rather. So I'll put this in the description down below. If you like the look of it, definitely check it out. Check out his other models as well. I printed this model specifically for a D&D campaign a couple of months ago, actually about a year ago at this point, and it was the third model I think I had ever printed. I had unfortunately thrown out the first two models that I printed because I didn't realize how valuable they would be to me later on, and that's kind of what I'm getting at here. So I printed this model specifically for an NPC, by the name of Orem, and it was an NPC that I kind of came up with the idea of an Arcanist having his consciousness switched with that of a sea troll through a magical kerfuffle, and ended up throwing my players for a loop, and they all had a great time, and they really liked the character, so I ended up bringing them back in subsequent sessions. But when I printed this model, I was actually really hesitant to use it and started getting concerned and was really down on myself because it didn't look as good as I was looking for, and I was getting really frustrated because you can see it's got layer lines on the front there. You can see this big nasty seam going up the side of it because it's actually printed in two parts and glued together, or at least this one that I printed was. And at the time I didn't know anything about putting pins in models for alignment or making a guide or anything like that. So this model didn't turn out quite the way that I was hoping, because my skills weren't at the level that I was expecting them to be, or they weren't at the level that I was hoping them to be, because I had been seeing all of these really cool prints that people were posting online and saying, you know, look at this awesome model that I made, and look at these great results that I'm getting. And I would look at that and think, like, why can't I get that same result? I have that same printer, I'm using the same filament, I'm using the same profile, but I can't get those kind of results, and getting really frustrated. But moral of the story is I printed this, glued it up, put it on the table, and we ended up having a great session and created a character that the group loved and ended up coming back over and over again because they really enjoyed the character. Not a single player said anything about the model not looking good enough or it having any issues. It was me that was concerned about that. Nobody else cared. They all had a great time. And later on, I realized after a couple months, I went back and looked at this model again, and while I don't think that it looks nearly as bad as I originally thought, it certainly doesn't look as good as some of the other models I printed later. I think the layer lines on this are pretty harsh, and I didn't print it at a great angle, and I've learned a ton of technical skills and tricks since then. So the main reason why I think it's so important to keep the first model that you print, the first model that you paint, is because you then have a real physical, tangible object that you can go back and you can look at and compare with what you're currently working on, to give yourself that confidence boost, to show yourself, yeah, look where I started and look where I've gotten to, look how far I've come. Because you might be working on something that you failed to print 2-3 times, and you're starting to get really frustrated, and you're starting to get to the point where you're feeling really down on yourself, and you're doubting your skills, you're doubting the progress that you've made. And I've been there, I've done it a lot. It's a pretty consistent character flaw that I have that I'm trying to work on, is I have a hard time not taking it well whenever something doesn't go right. I immediately think, it's me, it's my fault, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to be good enough at this, and I should just give up now. And it's it's definitely not what you want to get into as far as a mindset for this hobby, because it's a skill, and you work on it. And I think that, like I said, if I had the opportunity to take a minute and compare the model that I was currently trying to print and see the level of difficulty on it. Maybe it's it's a tall model with a lot of intricate details, and it's going to take some really fine tuning with the support settings and speeds and things like that. Or maybe it's a resin print that's going to take some really delicate support placement and some very specific exposure settings or something along those lines. And I look at the level of difficulty of the print that I'm currently trying to work on versus something that I did in the beginning, and I see how far I've come, and I see what I'm trying to do now. It gives me a huge boost of confidence because I know that I'm improving, because I can see what I'm trying to tackle now versus what I did in the beginning. So whether it's printing or painting, highly recommend you guys keep your first model. Keep the first one you painted, keep the first one you printed, and then go back and look at that in 2 weeks, 6 months, a year, whatever it might be, whenever you start to feel down on yourself and start to get frustrated and think that you're not making progress, because you can pull this model out and take a look at it and see a real change between the progression of where you started and where you are now. And along with that, I also want to issue a challenge. So that challenge is, I will have a link in the description below to the Slice Print Roleplay Facebook group. I want you guys to join the group if you haven't already, and I want you to post pictures of the first model that you printed and or the first model that you painted. And then if you have it, I want you to also take pictures of the model that you're currently working on printing or painting or modeling. And I'm hoping that that'll give people an idea, and they'll see, some of the models that people are working on now are really great. They're super high detailed. They look amazing. Maybe the paint job is just like, it blows you away. And then you look at the paint job they did at first, and you can see the vast difference between that skill level. And, they'll hopefully, I'd also appreciate it if you guys are willing to put in how much time you spend on something. If it's been, 6 months in between these prints, or if it's been 2 years in between these prints, like, give us an idea of what the timeline is here for you to build those skills. And like I said, I'm hoping that that'll be a good resource for people to be able to look at and see that this is a skill-based hobby, and it will take time to build those skills just like anything else. And even though you're using a machine, it's still a tool, and the tool is only ever going to be as good as the person using it. So build up that level of skill, and like I said, don't try to be too down on yourself. Don't be like me. Try to cut yourself some slack, and remember that in the end, it's all about having fun, and you are most likely going to be your own worst enemy and your own worst critic. Like I said, my players love this model, and to date, they've never had an issue with any of the models that I printed, even though I have. I'm always hard on the errors that I find, and try to see how I can improve in the future. And that's a good resource, but also at the same time, you don't want to let it overwhelm you and start to bring you down and make you a little sad about your prints or whatever. So yeah, there's my challenge to you guys. Join the group below and post something, what you're working on now and what you did in the beginning. And if what you're posting is your first print, then congratulations, welcome to the hobby, and hopefully the videos that I'm currently making, the ones that I've already posted, will help you along your journey. And please let me know in the comments below if there's any issues that you're running into and you want me to do videos on in the future. And if you find this video helpful or inspiring, or if it helps kind of alleviate some of the stress you're having about printing, please consider, hitting that like button, subscribe, share it with your friends you think would be interested, and maybe you want to get them involved with this challenge and get them to post some of the stuff they're working on and some of the first prints that they've made. So, all right, guys, thanks so much. I appreciate it, and I'll catch you on the next one.